And welcome back to the Pennsylvania and Berwind. We are live here with Amy. And Amy is new to the map, coming onto the map from out of town. Amy has been on the map before, but I just new to the map this session. We haven't looked at her before. But Amy has a string of potash cars, which are going to the fertilizer plant in Allegheny, although sort of is Esopus, I guess. And then behind that, I think there's also some box cars for the fertilizer. No, it's actually some cylindrical hoppers that might be going to Gills, which is also on the DBEV area of the route. So that might be a chance to finally explore some of that other parts of the DBEV that we haven't been to so far yet. And in the background, I made a few changes. Seems like I'm always making a few minor, very minor tweaks, sometimes debatable as to whether those tweaks are even worth mentioning. But yeah, I did change the track leading up to the bridge, which I didn't think looked very nice. And I'm definitely going to continue improving it. This is my first time seeing it in action live. But yeah, I can see in the background a few jagged areas that might be smoothed out slightly, but not a big deal. We're just going to be heading up there. And yeah, it's always a debate whether to sort of back over this bridge or to go the correct direction. We don't lack for runaround space here, but we do lack for runaround space on the other side of things. So that's the issue. So I don't know. I'm open to feedback. I might try to mix it up and do it one way one time and the other way the other time, but I think this time we're going to back over the bridge. More to keep the episode moving than for realism, obviously. And of course, we'll have our caboose to make sure everything's safe. Let the engineer know if there's anything problematic on the way. Sheriday said, just came in to say hi. Can't stay as I'm working on the South Folds trailer. Aha, interesting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Brilliant, brilliant work. Needless to say. DBEV Junction is right behind us here. Aha, yes, of course. Facing the wrong direction. Interesting signal. I'm not so familiar with that type of signal. Guessing that's an approach type signal. Indication, I should say. And there is definitely a switch thrown against us. Not close, though. Here we are. All right, so here we are. Sheriday says thank you and bye. Yeah, see you again. So yeah, this track previously was on a raised section with two concrete retaining walls on each side. It just looked a little bit ridiculous, I thought. I'm not sure if this is really any less strange looking, but I think it's a bit of an improvement for right now. Speed limit should be a little bit lower because I didn't get the chance to adjust that. And yeah, we do have a very sharp turn coming here. And one other thing that I did change is that now the cars on the road below are actually going in the correct lanes. instead of driving completely down the middle. Now, I didn't figure out what was going on there, other than I just replaced a road that apparently had traffic on it, assigned to it, with a road with no traffic, and then I put down separate traffic splines for the actual, each lane going in 2 different directions. That's really weird that that road would be set up initially to have had traffic going down the center. It seems kind of unbelievable, but it seems to be the case. The tree has grown up really a little bit too close to that track there, I'd have to say. Alcinor says, "Good morning, afternoon, sir." And Vixter says, "Boo, Troubles is here." Yes. You know, I honestly was not planning to stream today. And what changed my mind is I started working on the route, and then I started getting into it, started getting into making some changes, and then I thought, well, you know, I'm already here. Even if probably nobody's available today, it might be interesting to stream this now that I have the momentum, you know? So I was definitely not necessarily expecting anybody would join, as always. Let's just pull this train for now into, I'm going to call this area of town Esopus, even though I'm also modeling it as being part of the greater Allegheny metropolitan region. Because, first of all, we do need to get some of the other important tasks underway. And then, secondly, we do need to clear out the fertilizer plant, which currently has some, currently has a train. I believe that's the train of Adair, which is servicing the fertilizer track, filling up some boxcars with fertilizer, obviously. So we need to address that as well. Coming up to another momentous edit that I made to the route, which is I removed the telephone pole, which was sticking through the roof of that building in the background. I know, arduous tasks. And a fault that was introduced when I moved some things around on the map, not something that came about due to the original route having a telephone pole through any buildings. I have not located any such errors of that nature. Bit late on that, of course. It's all right. I didn't see any cars. Yeah, I'm taking it a little easy because I kind of think that the speed limit there should have been like 25 the whole way across that bridge. Or 20. I think some speed limit got removed when I changed the track layout. Vixter said, "Did you change anything on the map?" Yeah, I was just talking about it. Basically, the way that the bridge was that we just crossed, that has changed. And then a few other things. It looks like we got some excessive grass splines there. I'll have to change. How did I not notice that before? So we could even stop here. Yeah, let's do that. There's plenty of time to stop here. And this will enable other folks to get through, yes or no? Perhaps not, actually. Anyway, we are stopping there. But we're not going far, because right next to the door we have tram. Now, tram is our S2s. And these S2s need to be filled up with sodium hydroxide. Gosh, is it the traffic is not stopping again? Okay, that was something I meant to look into. But this is another correction that I made to the route, which is that now we have some tank cars which accept sodium hydroxide by default. The Procors could not accept it under any circumstances, whereas these can accept it by default. So yeah, ADM tank cars will be for trains that are aiming to pick up sodium hydroxide. Not that they couldn't pick up other things, they're flexible. That's what I like. I don't like assets that you cannot edit the loads of. I think it's because we're on that turn. We're not really on the turn anymore. These tank cars are just very heavy once they get filled up. Bigster says, sorry, I had to help with something. Also very cool. Alsonar said he planned to stream, but have been given a honey-do list, so had to give that up. Oops, we've gone too far. Dang it. Reading chat. Well, why don't we just hold it right there? We're probably going to go too far by 3 car lengths anyway, so might as well just hold it here. No big deal. Okay, let's come back over to the fertilizer plant, which is fortunately right next door. We only have one more car to fill it up, so that's good. These two RS11s, which came in with a bunch of empty covered hoppers for Huskins, I believe that is a lower priority than servicing the Highland Brewery. They're all priorities, of course, but I think that we're going to go back into the Allegheny Yard here and lash up with this train of hoppers that are heading to the Highland Brewery. They're loaded cars. I do hope that the color rendering in this recording will be a little bit better than what it has been. I have not actually changed the colors of anything, but I have adjusted the color of the OBS recordings. So I feel like it's a little bit more accurate to what I'm seeing on screen compared to somewhat oversaturated, but also too bright highlights of some of the earlier recordings that I made. Lots of Burlington covered hoppers there. Got an NP and a Great Northern. All skin changing. And yes, I do want to put those on the DLS. I have a long backlog of tasks, as always. And I also got some feedback when I posted the screenshots of this RS11 that a couple of the other locomotives were in need of a little bit of attention, especially the SD40. I had done the hood shape incorrectly, and somebody pointed that out. So that has also been updated, including the SD40 that we saw on screen just a few moments ago. So there are things happening, both in terms of routes and in terms of assets. Okay, I think we can now simply instruct this train to go on to Highland. Question is, do I want to do that? Tyler, as everybody knows, is over here unloading paper at the distribution plant, and that is an urgent task. So let's get going with that. And it's almost done. I mean, a lot of cars left to empty, but you can see the unloading area is long enough that we could potentially do this in 3 unloads, including this one. Take a sip of Earl Grey tea here. Yeah, Trains for me is a wonderfully engrossing game, which has been totally addictive. But unlike other computer games that I've occasionally gotten a bit addicted to and played a little bit too much, I feel like everything in Trains has been creative and even potentially a contribution to the community as opposed to like time-wasting addiction. That's why I like it so much. In a lot of computer games that I've played over the years, my gameplay will start out being very interesting, but then become highly repetitive as I get used to the game and try to sort of beat my old score. And that's just not the way Trains is at all for me. Okay, I'm looking at my cheat sheet here of things that have to get done, basically. So Andrew and Richard are both going to Allegheny, and then they will be taking coal to Grafton. So you do need to rush back there. Yes, Thomas with M & West Furniture is kind of blocking this track. So we want to keep pulling him forward whenever we go over to the Juniata distribution. Might as well do this one. And this is a task we've been working on because it's one boxcar per movement, so not surprising that this one is taking a little bit of extra long time. But I also skipped it for most of the episodes we've seen so far, so yeah. Okay, so let's go back to Tyler. Okay, Tyler, yes, everything is looking good there. So now I want to go back to our S2s. So how about Tram continues to go in the same direction as before? Even though we're missing a few loads there, I don't think we can load from the beginning of the train here first. I believe this is one of the today tasks as well, so this is to be considered highly urgent. Okay, shall we stop it there or just slow it down? Let's stop it. Try to get that middle tank car directly underneath the loading bar. That could be good. Okay, here. This is looking good. Looking good. Excellent. Okay, let's go to Adair. Okay, Adair is done. So sometimes when you're watching this series, you might get the feeling like we start a task and then it doesn't get finished. You might feel like, oh, this is, these tasks never get done, you know, but they do. Okay, so Allegheny interchange track 4. I'm going to say track 2. Track 2D. Oh man, it is very confusing. And I'm not even sure if I did the labels or if they came from Approach Medium. It's got to be me though. Wait, is it not numbered though? 410. Yes, okay. 410 3D. Okay, let's do that. Yeah, both Andrew and Richard have coal trains, short coal trains, and I have instructed both those coal trains to go to Allegheny. Okay, but it seems that Richard is already through. Okay, well, let's tell you what. Let's have you back into Allegheny, because you're through, but not that far. So I think what we want to do here is actually back this train into this track here. Yeah, I thought I had so much time that there was no possibility that I would be coming to these trains after they pass through. Okay, got some chat. I like seeing New England train stuff, and I personally believe that trains need a lot of New England Railroad. I'm enjoying the BAR GP9s a lot. Still do, even though I haven't played it much, even though I gotta have a long coal drag. Yeah, once I get finished through my list, I will do a few more skins, and I do like the idea of having more Northeast content, maybe not necessarily New England per se, but I did take a look at some of the main central paint schemes, and I do quite like those, especially the ones with the I think they're red stripes on kind of a grayish background. I could be wrong. So that would be for some reskins of assets. I'm not going to make any more locomotives than the ones that I've made so far, but for some of the ones that I made so far, some reskins are definitely in the cards. Generally speaking, reskins aimed at the 1960s and 70s paint schemes. So yeah, I think rather than having two separate coal trains going to the same location, since they're both in the Allegheny area, it makes sense to just have one coal train. And somehow I suspect that you, whoever you are watching this, will probably agree. Actually, why don't we just back up a little bit more, then this locomotive can go into the yard directly instead of hanging out here. Track layout is perfect for that suggestion, in my opinion. Vixter says making locomotive is hard, to be honest. I can't make trains, but I can grasp boats. New boats are easier. Gosh, that is really funny because I have made both. And I would have to say that, in my opinion, boats are harder because you have that curved hull. Obviously, the hood of locomotives and for steam engines, the boiler can have some interesting curves, but nothing as complicated, in my opinion, as the curves of a boat of any kind. Almost any kind. I mean, there's some flat-bottom barges here that are basically just rectangles with a little bit of beveling here and there, bit of angling. Okay, once we get here, I need to really, actually I can do it now. I can look at Andrew. Where is Andrew right now? Okay, Andrew has actually reached wherever Andrew was going to go, I think. Which, don't exactly know where that is. Oh no, Andrew is still moving. I can see some pixels flickering in and out. So we should actually start to see Andrew maybe even in the background here. And then my intent would be that Andrew would take this train on to Grafton. Oh, and you can see actually where Andrew is from that yellow line. This is the Trains Living Railroad, one of the features. Now, I do not use Trains Living Railroad, and I'm generally not interested in Trains Living Railroad. And I wish I could disable this yellow line at all times. In theory, I thought it would be disabled because I have totally disabled Trains Living Railroad on the map. But when you do activate this little, what do you call it? View driver details from the driver control menu, then it does give you the TLR. Okay, Andrew, let's take over your train. Everything is all messed up here. I guess you could say that's partly to do with being discombobulated, talking while playing trains, but this time I was genuinely confused as opposed to just the usual not paying attention thing. If I recorded on my spreadsheet every time I forgot to pay attention to something due to streaming, or maybe contributed to by the fact of streaming, I would have a very long spreadsheet at this point. Alcera says, I looked at the JR PSD for their GE 45 tonner. It's the most complicated paint kit I've ever seen. Interesting. Fixer says, yeah, that's true. I want to model some Great Lakes freighters or something. That would be very interesting. I think that a lot of the boats and ships that are in the game are not that kind of middle size that would be most appropriate. And I think a lot of the ones that I've used are more like smaller scale. The smaller scale ones that I've used, mid-scale ones, are kind of like the wrong era as well. Like they're from the, I don't know, late 1800s or 1910s or something, where it doesn't really fit in at all to my era. And I know that a lot of the boats and ships that exist in trains are probably brought in from other games or something like that is my guess. So some of them can be very high quality or potentially even too high quality. Vixer says bar, B-A-R. So do you say bar or do you say B-A-R when you have all caps like that? And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, this paint scheme is based on the Bangor and Aroostook, if I'm saying that correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, scheme of the 1980s. So we do have these boxcar empties that probably could be offloaded at some point, but I don't want to do that here. And I'm actually going to quickly check the spreadsheet to make sure that those empties are not going to Juniata, because if they are, we might have to stop this task. The coal is not an urgent task. So for all loads, when I drop off the cars, if they don't have another destination, my thinking is to put them off map, although that shouldn't be for every car, right? Like there could be some that kind of hang out in the yards, which is also okay, like getting ready for the next task. But that, you know, if you just leave all the empties in the yards, that's not realistic either. So I don't want to have that be the system. So maybe 1/3 to each. 1/3 go east, 1/3 go west, and 1/3 get put in the yard for later use. Something like that. Okay, indeed, I had programmed these boxcars to go to Juniata. So that complicates matters somewhat. Does mean that I think what it means is we're going to jet off and keep tackling some of the other tasks here in the background. See, I only have one more tank car that I need to get here. And I believe this sodium hydroxide is actually going somewhere on the map. So it might be useful to not couple it to the string of diesel car. Well, they're going somewhere on the map as well. Okay, so this train, Adair, did get where I wanted Adair to go, but just not very far. I think ideally we would like the train to pull in far enough so that our SD40s can get around. It looks like that should be possible. Okay, now can we program... Ooh, side smoking. I have not noticed that one before. So unfortunately, I think we do maybe need to back this train up manually. That's going to be really inefficient, though. So Allegheny Interchange Track 2. Or we could just drive it to the ice cream thing. What about driving it to Esopus Valley, Maine? That's what I think we're going to do. Drive via 4 Esopus Valley, Maine, 411. Generally speaking, all the things on the DBEV I have labeled with in the 400s. All right, we are back with Tyler. Okay, get back into the chat here. Elsinore says, I paint cars for iRacing. Their paint kits are simple and straightforward to work with. Yeah, I don't know exactly what you're referring to regarding paint kits. Any reskinning that I have done has been just directly editing image files using Photoshop. Well, I guess I should say that when I reskin, sometimes I'm using Blender and PBR Painter because the model is a model that I created in the first place. So when I said reskinning regarding my my locomotives and stuff like that, I'm referring to using PBR Painter, not using any imaging software either. Okay. That's Tyler. One more movement there, perhaps, or two? I'm not even going to bother counting the number of cars that still need to be loaded with furniture here. This task, of course, is going to start to rise in importance slightly now that he's blocking the main line. So if 4 more cars could get loaded in a relatively quick order, that would be good. Always, for some reason, I think I'm looking for the Penn Central one, because to my mind, the Penn Central one is like in the front, even though it's actually not in the front. It's in the rear. And I better check, but yes, the tank car did get loaded. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to then decouple these tank cars and leave them here and take off down the track heading to the fertilizer plant with those box cars. The route sure is pretty during the daytime, I think. Oh, here, once again, I lost concentration as I'm talking. So we're probably already in danger of overrunning. Nope. Doing good, doing good, doing good. Okay, right around there. Ho ho ho. Okay. So now let's go back to Andrew, which is not far away, of course. And when I started this series, I said that I do like to jump around among locomotives. And I think in this episode you see a few very good examples of that, where we're really not getting stuck in just one location, nor are we just following trains around the map. That's how I like to play it, and I don't know if that's fun for people to watch. I assume that things that I find frustrating to watch, there is the same reaction among the audience, even for people who enjoy the series, that if I find it frustrating, they probably also find it frustrating. And sometimes when there's a train like the M and West Furniture, where you're going back to it just to do a single car, that can be maybe a little bit more frustrating to watch than some of the other ones. So I have tended to edit some of those tracks to make them like longer loading areas and so forth. So here the strategy is to back up, connect the strings of coal loads, and then I'm going to back up that one Lehigh Valley GP9. I'm going to back that up with the caboose so that we can easily attach the caboose to the tail end. Mixer says, oh, and I forgot to mention, when I do make a lake freighter, I plan on doing a 1-to-1. Mixer says, to trains people and trains. And I think we can do that at the same time, right? So just back this guy up with the caboose. Yes. Now we have actually started to accumulate cabooses to a certain extent here. Which is by design, but at some point it will be necessary or desirable to have one of the switch engines, maybe this locomotive, start to move some of those cabooses into the caboose tracks. Is that far enough? I'm going to go a little bit further back. Okay, let's pause because I'm worried about... Huh, did we derail? I don't see any X's. Yeah, we're going to have a derailment, I think. Oh, man, 2 derailments in a row. take two. Ah, yes. And I was thinking to myself, I went for 9 episodes each of the Pennsylvania Berwind and the PMB without any derailments. Then I had one on episode 10 of the Wallace Branch, very minor derailment. Almost nothing to feel bad about. And I was thinking to myself, so I wonder if I'll have another streak like that of no derailments, or if this is the start of a new bad trend. Now, in the background, the traffic is moving in the correct lane, but I just saw another. I think part of the reason I wasn't paying attention is I was really focused on the FedEx truck that was going in the center of the road. Started concentrating on that. Trying to think why that would be. Like, would the no traffic spline actually have traffic on it? Okay, here we go. Now we can program autopilot for Grafton. Grafton Dockside. Okay, I'm going to assume that our tank cars are all loaded now. They are. So let's unload, let's decouple and head to navigate to 410 Allegheny Fertilizer outbound. Pick up and drop off. Okay. Next, we are going back to Tyler. And Tyler has completed the task, I would have to say. Once we get these cars pulled up to the dockside. Fixture says, wait, was that the episode where the boxcar went downhill? No, I don't know what you're talking about. FedEx has the right of way. Yeah, I was thinking that it's possible that the vehicle itself is at fault, that the vehicle asset is designed with its center off center, so it's that's what's causing the error, but dang. Yeah, super annoying when things like that are, when you think that you fixed it and then you realize that it's not fixed. That I find very annoying. Of course, as annoying as that is when, or even more annoying is when I can't figure out how to fix it, which is the case for some of these road stoppers that aren't stopping traffic. All right, here we are at M & West. Few Conrail cars in this train. These are not skin changers, so you tend to get more repeats when there's no skin changer because you get lazy when you're putting the train together, and also it helps with the car tagger issue. Yeah, I think that this train, what we want to do is pull this into the Laurel siding, or maybe just take this train into Allegheny itself. Yeah, okay, looking good. And it might be something that could be done via yeah, so the derailment that I had in the last episode, i.e. episode 10 of the Wallace Branch, that was just due to passing over, running a switch. You know, usually when you run a switch at low speeds, the train will not derail, but I think on the realistic setting there's some probability. that a car would derail when running a switch. And this was running a switch at a very low speed with the locomotive, and the locomotive derailed, I believe. Anyway, it was a situation where the train derailed on a switch that it had run. Either it was running it or it had just finished running the switch and reverse direction over it, which would cause a derailment. Oh, I forgot how close these two trains were. Okay, so going to the Laurel, but could we just go into Allegheny then? Allegheny West Yard. East Yard, track east, perhaps? Let's drive via Allegheny East Yard, track 7 east. And another train that we have not looked at very often recently. String of empties. I believe these are all empty. Yeah, it's gotta be. They're all empty. Yeah, got going a little too fast because I was talking. Kind of wish the cars would come along here so that I could see whether the stopper is working. You can see that, generally speaking, the stoppers may have stopped working, but the gates are still working. It's mysterious. All right, let's program this train now. Drive to Allegheny 9 East. I'm very curious if that will actually work. Okay, well, we got this car, but the door is still open, so that means it should not be moved. I think they sort of open up, in my experience, the doors open up sort of randomly, which side they open on. Alcinor says the Wallace derailment was the last car and the local on the run switch. Watched it yesterday. Oh, cool. So I do rewatch all of my episodes, not only when I'm editing them, but also once I post them, I usually watch them right before I record the next one. But I have actually watched that derailment a couple times, and because I think part of it happens off screen, it's a little confusing what exactly happened, but yeah, I think you're right. We're almost done there. Okay, let's just check. Okay, Tyler's almost done. That is, after all, what I said we were going to do. Oh, well, this would be problematic if there's a train in front of us, however. I am glad that I noticed that. After a series of successful sending of AI trains on their way, I just assumed that that train was also on its way, but I was wrong about that. That must be an indication that the shortest path is precisely through where this other train is located. And Esopus is it's a quiet zone, no horn zone, so we don't have to do the horn for this intersection. And no, I did not just make that up. Fixture has to go. Thank you very much for joining. Good luck with the boats and the ships. Okay, now let's continue your schedule. I don't know if you can hear it, but there is quite a large number of ambient sounds in this town, which I do really like. I think that in general there are a handful of sounds like the dog barking that are overdone and I have tended to remove, but for the most part the sounds on this route are one of the things that makes it pretty darn unique. See that we're dramatically speeding. Sometimes I'm not sure what the speed limit should be. But I have a feeling that that could have been a very poor track condition track, and that might have been the reason for a very low speed limit. The refinery in the background. Everything looking very nice. Definitely need to put an auto horn in there, I think. At least for the main line. The main line that we're on. I'm calling this as the main line at least. So once we couple up, I'm going to check the tonnage of the train. Let's see, I can check it actually now. 400 tons now. $400 now, and these tank cars are 900, and these tank cars are 800. Aha, so this road spline also has the middle of the road cars, I see. Aha. Well, I definitely screwed up there. Unfortunately, that is unfortunate for a couple reasons. It looks like the traffic was actually stopped there. Okay, I'm going to pull the train forward again, but unfortunately we have really run out of time. So I thought that we were going to take it through to the coupling of the train with the tank cars, and then we were going to have to leave off there, but very small distinction. We're going to have to leave it here. Hope you enjoyed this 10th episode of the Pennsylvania Berwind. I feel like we got above average amount of stuff done, especially completing that paper task is important, but also the sodium hydroxide, the fact that the fertilizer plant is definitely on the way towards being serviced. Basically, most of the today tasks are well in hand now for this route. And of course, we're making progress on other things like the coal, getting those empties trains consolidated. That's all helpful. So, yeah, see you in the next one.